The top stories tonight in Y News. Local government units appeal to residents to complete their COVID-19 vaccination as hundreds and thousands of Filipinos are reported to have skipped their second dose.
President Rodrigo Duterte soon to receive his second dose of donated Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine after the Philippine Food and Drug Administration's approval.
Senator Panfilo Lacson formally declines the offer of one sambayan for him to be among the opposition coalition's presidential nominee. The discussions on the compensation for Filipino fishermen abandoned by a Chinese vessel which hit their boat in the West Philippine Sea finally moves forward after 2 years.
The World Health Organization says it cannot pressure China as to how COVID-19 started.
And veteran OPM artist to star in a Song of Praise Music Festival's commemorative album. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, June 8, 2021. I am William Theo.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am Marlene Delgado.
First in the news, a group of patients are urging the public, especially persons with comorbidities, to avail the government's free COVID-19 vaccines as vaccine hesitancy in the Philippines remains. According to the group, vaccination is a crucial step to get their lives back. Janice Inhente reports.
Although the number of people who want to be vaccinated against COVID-19 has increased, some are still unconvinced and afraid to get vaccinated. According to the Philippine Alliance of Patients Organization, this is due to the spread of false information about COVID-19 vaccines on social media that causes confusion and fear to the public. That is why the group launched the Bakuna Now Na campaign, which can help to encourage their fellow patients or persons with comorbidities to get vaccinated.
And what's happening is actually coming from the ground, coming from the community, coming from people. That's how the misinformation spreads. We have our advocacy, which is Bakuna Now Na, which is essentially the drive to push people, starting with their own patient groups, to take positive action and get the vaccines as soon as possible.
The group will work with medical experts as well as the Department of Health to produce infographics containing legitimate information regarding COVID-19 vaccines. They also plan to release a vaccination webinar series to teach the importance of vaccination and correct the wrong concepts about its effect. In addition to persons with comorbidities, the campaign will also encourage other groups which are also covered by the government's priority group.
So our strategy is basically to be able to relate with the patients through common language and non-intimidating visuals.
We also urge everyone to support this unity call to achieve the level of population protection that we need to finally end this pandemic. So let's go for it. Bakuna Now Na.
The infographics and webinar series on COVID-19 vaccination can be accessed through the official social media accounts of the Philippine Alliance of Patients Organizations and other partner agencies. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the COVID-19 vaccination program of the government recorded a number of vaccinees missing their second jab. The local government units, however, emphasizes the need for vaccinees to take the second dose of their corresponding vaccine. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why. Yes, Asher, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. The local government units explained that they have been telling their constituents that the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine jab to vaccinees will not have any effect if the second dose will not be taken. This, as President Rodrigo Duterte reveals that the national government has been receiving reports of high number of vaccinees no longer participating in the vaccination program after taking their first dose.
I want the authorities and the LGUs to find out why this is happening and to take steps to return to their ma-imber na sila na madala ng mga barangay captain pati mayors. Kindly help us ferret out the persons who have not received the second booster until now.
Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairman Benjamin Benhar Abalos Jr. says that LGUs should ensure that vaccinees are reminded of the schedule of their next vaccination.
Ang importante sa second dose is tinatawagan talaga sila. Talagang tatawag-tawagan yan. Kasi ang importante rito ay yung ano ng gamot, hindi balik ko may mga gamot na mabilis lang like Sinovac eh. Pero yung kamukha ng Pfizer mo, kamukha ng sabagay 3 months naman itong AstraZeneca mo eh, no? So talaga tinatawag-tawagan sila.
Caloocan LGU, however, explains that they have recorded about 700 individuals in the city who have missed their schedule for the second dose. This despite their constant reminder to the vaccinees of their next vaccination.
For people not to miss their second dose, usually may text blast kami, and then the night before, ite-text pa sila ng staff ng health center. And then that day, on the day of their second dose, ite-text pa sila ng staff ng site.
Pateros Municipality Mayor Miguel Ponce, on the other hand, shares they have been constantly educating their constituents about the importance of being vaccinated and completing the process.
Consistent yung ating panawagan na nawawala ng saysay yung kanilang first dose kapag hindi sila babalik sa second dose. At binabanggitin natin sa kanila na kung kailangan talagang, kung gusto nilang magkaroon ng full protection, ay dapat makakuha nila yung second dose.
The LGUs appeal to the public to participate in the vaccination program to attain herd immunity for the health and safety of everyone. Will?
Yes, thank you, Asher, for explaining to us what the LGUs are doing to encourage people to get their vaccinations. Thank you. Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live.
The vaccination in the Philippines has expanded as individuals as young as 12 to 15 years old can now be inoculated with Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccines. However, the health department stressed that the government's priority groups remain. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine can now be administered for 12 to 15 years old with its amended emergency use authorization in the Philippines. But in a statement, Department of Health spokesperson Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergara said that due to limited vaccine supply, the country's COVID-19 vaccination strategy remains the same, which is to prioritize the vulnerable sector and adhere to the government's prioritization framework. Undersecretary Vergara added, the vaccine cluster through Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. is doing all the efforts to secure COVID-19 vaccines for the eligible population. In a message, National Task Force spokesperson retired General Restituto Padilla said the final approval for the vaccine rollout for minors will be given by the Vaccine Experts Panel and the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG. NITAG is a group of experts responsible for providing independent, evidence-informed advice to policymakers and program managers on policy issues related to immunization and vaccine. Meanwhile, FDA Director General Eric Domingo reported last night to President Duterte that they have approved the emergency use of China's Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine.
So ito po ay tiningnan na rin ng ating mga experts at ng ating pong evaluation sa FDA. And today we already granted an emergency use authorization to DOH to accept the donations of Sinopharm.
The DOH submitted an emergency use authorization last May. The Philippine FDA stands firm that the health department did not violate any law. FDA reiterates a government agency or a company with a license to operate as a drug importer can submit an EUA application for the use of a drug or a vaccine.
Talagang nasa sa batas yun, and it's worldwide practice, no? Yung atin namang Executive Order 121 natin na EUA is based on WHO guidelines. Kasi talagang posible rin naman na ang gobyerno ay gusto bumili ng bakuna pero walang local manufacturer or walang local representative dito. So in those cases, the government itself can get an EUA. Hindi naman conflict yun kasi ang mga EUA naman ay hindi naman talaga sila product registration, hindi naman sila marketing authorization. Talagang for emergency use lang mga bakuna.
DG Domingo explained one of the requirements needed for an EUA application of a vaccine manufacturer is a license to operate or LTO as a drug importer in the Philippines. Sinopharm has no existing LTO in the country.
Ang DOH kasi meron siyang license to operate as a drug importer. Tapos yung mga private companies, yung sa Astra, sa Pfizer, okay, mga nag-apply for Sputnik, mga mga licensed importers ng drugs dito sa atin. So I think yung Sinopharm, wala naman silang plano na mag-set up ng sarili nilang opisina dito. And will probably just be working with the department.
The three local manufacturers, as representatives of Sinopharm, have just sent letters of intent to submit an EUA application to FDA, but they did not submit requirements for an EUA application. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte will soon receive his second dose of the donated Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine following the approval of the country's Food and Drug Administration. Rosalie Cos explains why.
President Rodrigo Duterte has not yet received his second dose of Sinopharm vaccine. It has been more than a month since he was administered his first dose of the Chinese-made shot on May 3. The World Health Organization, or WHO Strategic Advisory Group of experts, recommends an interval of 3 to 4 weeks between the first shot and second shot of the Sinopharm vaccine. When asked about this, the palace says the chief executive will receive his second dose soon from the donated 1,000 doses of Sinopharm vaccines which have been issued emergency use authorization by the Food and Drug Administration.
Kaya nga po kumuha ng DOH ng EUA para dito sa mga donated na 1,000 na Sinopharm. Saan po gagamitin? Well, kasama na po dyan yung second dose ni Presidente dahil hindi pa po nakakaroon ng second dose ang ating Presidente dahil inaantay nga po itong EUA.
Meanwhile, the palace clarifies that if additional Sinopharm vaccines will be requested by the Philippines, a separate emergency use authorization must be applied for.
So kung mag-aangkat pa po ng mas marami, I think a separate EUA will have to be given to the entity na mag-i-import po niyan.
It was on May 10 when the WHO Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization published its interim recommendations on the use of COVID-19 vaccine developed by Sinopharm. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The government has started vaccinating essential workers who are included in the A4 priority list. But who are these economic frontliners and what are the guidelines for their vaccination? Let us know in Nel Mariboc's report.
The economic frontliners are the A4 priority group. You are qualified to the group if you belong to the following. These are workers in commuter transport like drivers, helpers, pilots, stewardess, porter, cleaner, and janitors in stations and terminals and airports. A4.2 if you are vendor in the market, also frontline workers in the grocery and supermarkets, workers in manufacturing of food, beverage, medical products. A4.4 are workers in food retail, including food service delivery like waiters, restaurant managers and janitors, street food vendors, cook and kitchen helpers. Frontline workers in the financial services like in banks and remittance centers are included in the A4.5. Also workers in hotel and accommodations, leaders of different religious denominations, security guards or personnel assigned in establishments or offices, workers in news media, customer-facing personnel of telecoms, cable and internet service providers, electricity distribution and water distribution utilities, teachers, support personnel and janitors in the basic education and higher education institutions and agencies, overseas Filipino workers scheduled for deployment within 2 months, frontline workers in the judiciary, security and social protection sectors. These include customs and borders inspectors, prosecutors, court personnel, firefighters, police officers, prison guards, and public investigators. Government workers engaged in operations of government transport system like in LRT, MRT, PNR, workers in ports and airport terminals, also inspectors from Labor Department and Trade and Industry Department. Workers in charge of tax collection, election, national ID and data collection personnel. Personnel in the diplomatic community, Department of Foreign Affairs and Department of Public Works and Highways personnel in charge of monitoring in infrastructure projects. There are 2 phases of the vaccination rollout for A4. The first phase, workers in the NCR Plus 8. These include Metro Manila, Cavite, Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, Batangas, Pampanga, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao will be vaccinated. Next are workers or personnel in the government agencies or corporations and local government units. Also the informal sector workers, self-employed, working outside residence, and private household workers. The second phase is the jobs outside NCR Plus 8. Local government unit will be the one who will create a list for the informal sector. What are the steps for registration? Based on the A4 Group COVID-19 deployment plan, the eligible workers shall be pre-registered according to their place of work. OFWs that are scheduled for deployment within 2 months will pre-register at the LGU where they reside. To facilitate the vaccine deployment, the establishments or company are encouraged to coordinate with the LGU regarding the workers' vaccination. Scheduling systems are advisable for their workers, taking into consideration the possible adverse effects of the vaccines, which may result in workers taking time off from work. Workers will register for the appointment with the advised schedule of their employer. Is there a need to bring any documents in the vaccination site?
I think office ID, work ID would suffice, no? Kasi ngayon, ang definition ng A4 is broad enough to include anyone who works outside of his home, and an ID, work ID would be sufficient.
But how about those working from home? According to retired General Restituto Padilla, the NTF spokesperson, the initial priority are the workers required to be at their work areas that are in direct contact with clients or customers. The Department of Health advised the LGUs to prioritize the A4 group with age 40 to 59. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our 24/7 live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
Senator Panfilo Lacson has formally declined the offer of opposition coalition Isang Bayan to be part of its presidential nominees. This report explains why.
Amid talks on his possible presidential bid, Senator Panfilo Lacson has made it official to reject the offer of Isang Bayan coalition to be part of its presidential nominees in the 2022 elections. He also declined the invitation to participate in a town hall meeting about national security and foreign policy. In a letter addressed to its lead convener, former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, Lacson cited the supposed prior statements of Carpio suggesting that he will be a stumbling block in the political endorsements. Lacson adds he was under the impression of being precluded after Carpio's remarks in a television interview that it would be inconsistent and incongruous for the group to endorse him being the principal sponsor of the anti-terrorism law. Carpio and other members of the coalition are among the petitioners questioning the constitutionality of the law before the Supreme Court.
Kasi sa akin, any self-respecting person or individual na preclude ka na tapos ngayon iimbitahin ka. Meron naman siguro akong sariling respeto merong respeto sa sarili ko para pupunta pa ba ako dyan sa inyo? I'm more inclined to decline than participate.
Before this, isang bayan convener Attorney Howard Calleja said in a statement that they remain open to discuss things with Lacson in response to the senator's remark that he was inclined to decline the invitation. According to Lacson, they are still in the process of consultation and he has yet to decide whether or not to run for presidency. But should he decides to run, his running mate will only be Senate President Vicente Soto III, who convinced him to consider running for the highest post.
Kaya sabi ko, sige, hindi ko na isara yung pinto, pero baka pwede magkonsulta tayo doon sa mga nakakaalam para i-measure natin yung ating kapasidad kung kaya ba nating tugunan yung naglalaki ang problema ng bansa. Kasi kung hindi rin lang natin kakayanin, bakit pa, anong legacy pa yung ating gustong ialay? Sabi niya, gusto ko lang ipakita na kayang isolve yung illegal drugs and
Despite having a one more term in the Senate, the 73-year-old lawmaker says he is considering two things for his political career: to run for president or to retire from politics. Horadine Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Chinese government has reassured the compensation for the owner and crew members of the Philippine fishing vessel FB Gemver 1, which was rammed by a Chinese vessel near the Recto Bank in 2019. Dante Amento has this story.
The Philippines, through the Department of Justice and the Department of Foreign Affairs, talked with China's Bureau of Fisheries yesterday. DOJ Undersecretary Adrian Sugay says the Philippine panel reiterated the compensation demanded by the owner and crew members of FB Gemver 1. These include damages sustained by the fishing vessel, loss of income, and both moral and mental sufferings. Sugay adds the claim is less than 19 million pesos. The Philippine panel also explained to the Chinese government some maritime laws violated by the Chinese fishing vessel crew members and the failure to extend assistance to the victims. Meanwhile, China is expected to submit its counter-proposal. China, through its Bureau of Fisheries, assures to coordinate with the Department of Justice to ensure fair compensation for the affected fishermen. The fishermen were left at sea by the Chinese vessel that rammed their boat on the night of June 9, 2019. It was only through a passing Vietnamese vessel that they were rescued. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Rear Admiral Adeluis Bordado has been designated as the next Chief of the Philippine Navy. In a statement, Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff General Cirilito Sobejana welcomed Bordado's appointment as a 39th Flag Officer in command of the Philippine Navy. Bordado will replace outgoing Navy Chief Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo.
Meanwhile, the number of jobless Filipinos in the country hit 8.7% in April. This translates to 4.14 million unemployed Filipinos for the month, the Philippine Statistics Authority adding that this is about the same level as the rate reported in the previous quarter or from the data from January and February 2021. Data from the PSA showed that unemployment rate in January was at 8.7% and 8.8% in February 2021. It, however, noted that the latest unemployment rate is substantially lower than the record high 17.6% in April last year, but higher compared to the 7.1% posted in March 2021. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, said that the spike was expected due to the imposition of strict quarantine in Metro Manila. However, the department is optimistic that market conditions will be improved by the timely rollout of vaccines for the essential workers. A labor group proposes for the guidelines of the right to disconnect from work as some employees working from home are having difficulty setting boundaries between work and their personal lives. But according to the Labor Department, it is a voluntary engagement between employers and their employees. Ray Pelayo explains why.
The working life of Filipinos was changed as soon as the coronavirus pandemic began. More companies now rely on a work-from-home scheme to avoid the spread of COVID-19. But the Associated Labor Union Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, or ALO-TUCP, sees the new arrangements as a burden to some employees as they are forced to work for longer hours. That is why the ALO-TUCP wants to have guidelines for the right to disconnect from their job or the enactment of a new law.
Sa kasalukuyan kasi, parang wala nang boundary yung oras mo sa pagtatrabaho at yung oras mo para sa sarili mo. Pero kung ikaw ay pumapasok sa opisina at umuwi galing opisina, may boundary kasi 8 hours lang yung trabaho mo eh.
Oo, ganun lang talaga.
Pero dito sa work from home ngayon, mukhang walang oras ng 8 hours.
The Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, respects the rights of the employees, and workers may insist the right to disconnect to their employers. However, there are emergency cases that a job must be completed even after working hours to avoid disruption of operations.
Konsiderasyon na lang ito sa atin. Kung hindi naman nakaka-permission sa kanya, why not? Just leave it open. Baka may mga messages na papasok. Kung naman na palagay niya nakaka-disrupt talaga sa family life niya, they can tell the companies, insist on this right.
The Labor Department said they are looking into the merit of the proposal, but it would not be applicable to all.
Sa amin, sa government, hindi kami pwedeng mag-right to disconnect because nasa public service kami, di ba?
Dole said employers should discuss the terms and conditions of a work-from-home arrangement with their employees, including the consideration of salary adjustments for overtime work.
Anything that is beyond the 8-hour work, for instance, also deserves overtime pay. And if that is included in the agreement, then you really cannot invoke the right to disconnect kasi nag-agree ka eh.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, the World Health Organization cannot compel China to divulge more data on the origins of COVID-19. Iya De Vera will tell us the details live. Iya?
Staff WHO Executive Director of Health Emergencies Michael Ryan announced in a press conference on Monday that WHO cannot pressure China in disclosing more information regarding the coronavirus origins. This came after a reporter asked how the organization can urge China to be more open about the topic, as members of WHO team who visited China earlier this year to investigate the origins of the disease said they did not have access to all necessary data. This incited debate over China's transparency and theories on how the virus possibly started. Some theories state that the virus jumped from bats to animals or that it was leaked from a laboratory in Wuhan, to which China denied. Ryan added that despite this lack of input from China, they anticipate the full cooperation and support from the member states. Meanwhile, WHO also voiced its plea for vaccine donations to poor countries. Back to you, Steph.
Thank you, Iya, for that report. Former world leaders are urging the 7 rich nations to shoulder the cost of COVID-19 vaccinations in low-income countries. Jenry Lombos reports why.
100 former presidents, prime ministers, and foreign ministers urged Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, USA, and the UK to pay for global coronavirus vaccinations. In their open letter to G7 sent before the summit on Friday, former world leaders said that although global cooperation had failed in 2020, but this year's the chance to make amends. Among the signatories are former British Prime Ministers Gordon Brown, Tony Blair,
Blair and former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. They appealed on the G7 to shoulder $66 billion, which comprised two-thirds of the total budget needed for the COVID-19 vaccination of low-income countries. According to the former world leaders, they should consider this as the best insurance policy and not a charity in order to stop the virus and prevent the spread of mutations. In a statement ahead of the summit, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he will urge his fellow G7 leaders at the summit to make concrete commitments to vaccinate the world, as well as give support to the global pandemic radar, a new global surveillance system intended to protect immunization programs. Jenry Lombos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Taiwan announces a new vaccine distribution strategy that gives prioritization to medical frontliners. Mary Jo Malariado will give us the details live. Mary Jo?
Yes, good evening, Steph. Taiwan announces today that medical and anti-epidemic staffs are the top two in the 11 priority groups in the new guidelines set by the government for COVID-19 vaccine. The announcement came after Japan donated the 1.24 million doses of AstraZeneca or AZ vaccines, which will be used starting June 15 to the public for free. Among the new priority groups are the high-risk workers in third spot, which are the frontline staff such as aviation crew members, epidemic prevention fleet drivers, epidemic prevention hotel staff, while in fourth list are those who need to travel abroad due to special reasons. The donated AZ vaccine inspection will be completed this week. Central Epidemic Command Center head Chen Shi-chong said that there will be no more self-paid vaccines in the future and will add a new group tagged as those who maintain the operation of that society. The nationwide Level 3 epidemic alert was so extended until June 28 as the country already hit the 11,400 mark for COVID-19 confirmed cases according to Taiwan CDC. Steph?
Thank you, Mary Jo, reporting live. U.S. Food and Drug Administration approves a new drug to combat the progression of Alzheimer's disease in individuals, the first in 18 years. Marvy Delphine will give us the details live. Marvy?
Steph, United States Food and Drug Administration on Monday granted approval to the new and first ever drug aducanumab to treat Alzheimer's disease in nearly 20 years. Despite controversial debates made by independent researchers and advisors that the drug has no effect or benefit, the FDA still decided to approve the drug based on one successful clinical study developed by its manufacturer, Biogen. Biogen's clinical study showed reasonable reduction in the buildup of harmful clumps of plaque in the brain, which will slow down mental decline and dementia in individuals, but not completely stop it. The FDA acknowledges the disapproval of other researchers and has since required Biogen to conduct post-approval clinical studies to fully verify the benefits and results of the drug as per research protocols. Officials, however, remain positive that the current data and approval both support the use of the drug if chosen by patients and other families. Currently, Biogen has yet to disclose the price of the drug. A preliminary analysis by the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, however, has found that the medication would most likely be priced between $2,500 to $8,300 per year. Steph?
Thank you, Marvy, for that report. And those are the reasons behind the news in the other parts of the globe. I'm Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Good evening.
The diversion of all international flights from Mactan to Cebu International Airport in Cebu to Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Pasay City will be extended until June 12 as the province continues to fix its passenger arrival protocols. Meanwhile, starting June 13, the arrival protocols of the Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 will be implemented in Mactan Airport. Rosalie Cos reports.
The Office of the Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea has ordered the diversion to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA of all international flights bound for the Mactan Cebu International Airport until June 12, 2021. This is to prepare the province for the implementation of the protocols issued by the national government.
This office extends the diversion of international flights bound for MCIA to Ninoy International Airport until 23:59 hours of 12 June 2021.
It was on May 29 when ES Medialdea ordered the flight diversion. Before the new order, the flight diversion was set until June 5. President Rodrigo Duterte and Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia had a meeting to discuss the arrival protocols being implemented in the province. The Cebu government requires passengers to undergo a test upon arrival at the airport, while the IATF requires screening of passengers on the 7th day of their quarantine. Meanwhile, according to presidential spokesperson Roque, after June 12, the government would enforce the arrival protocols set by the IATF.
Inaasahan po natin that on the 13th of June, the IATF protocols on arriving OFWs and OFs will be implemented in Cebu. Yan po ay according to the memorandum issued by the Executive Secretary dated 5 June 2021.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines' total tally of COVID-19 cases increased to 1,280,773 today after the Department of Health or DOH reported 4,777 additional infections. The DOH also reported that 7,122 more patients recovered from the viral respiratory disease, pushing the total number of recoveries to 1,202,257. The death toll reached 22,064 with 95 new COVID-related deaths. The DOH said the number of active cases in the country is at 56,452. Of these cases, 93.2% are mild, 2.5% are asymptomatic, 1.19% are moderate, 1.7% are severe, and 1.3% are in critical condition. The DOH noted in its report that 10 accredited testing laboratories failed to submit data on time.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, reported the highest accurate measurement of atmospheric carbon dioxide level ever recorded in May 2021. Charisse Longbowen will give us the details live. Yes, Charisse, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. From the average carbon dioxide level of 280 parts per million or ppm during the pre-industrial time, last month's record showed a 50% increase, reaching 419.13 ppm, according to NOAA and Scripps Institute of Oceanography's announcement on Monday. The newest record is 1.82 ppm higher compared to May 2020, and scientists revealed that the average rate of increase is faster than ever. The measurements are done at Mauna Loa Observatory, which is a benchmark sampling location for carbon dioxide. These are evaluated during the month of May, when plants in the Northern Hemisphere start to remove large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during the growing season. According to NOAA, carbon dioxide pollution is generated by emissions from carbon-based fuels used in different industries, and the global economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic did not make significant difference in the condition of carbon dioxide. Peter Tans, a senior scientist with NOAA's Global Monitoring Laboratory, said that carbon dioxide is by far the most abundant human-caused greenhouse gas, and that the solution is on the use of solar and wind energies to avoid catastrophic climate change. William?
Yes, thank you, Charisse Longbowen, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand.
Veterans OPM singers Jaya, Yen Constantino, Jed Madela, among others, gave their own rendition to some of a song of praise or ASOP Music Festival's hits from the past seasons and commemorative album to be released this month. Mirasol Abogadil has the story.
Music Festival in its 10th year on television and coinciding with the launching of ASOP Music Festival International is releasing its commemorative album entitled A Song of Praise Music Festival International, The Legacy Continues. According to the album's producer, ASOP President Judge Dr. Musico Mon del Rosario, the album will include 12 songs from ASOP Music Festival's past seasons.
Ito ay mga choice songs, cream of the crop na song, na kinanta naman ng mga cream of the crop na mga arts performer. Kaya napaka-special ng album na ito.
Doc Mon also explained what makes the album really special to him.
Yung rare chance to be able to work with very talented artists ng Cornerstone Music. And on a personal note, to be reminded again and again during the weeks na ginagawa natin itong album, nare-remind ako that God is good, God is in control, and no matter ano man ang challenges na pinagdadaanan natin ngayon, in the end, God will win our fight and He will show us His miracles.
Songs from the album were performed last Sunday night during ASOP Music Festival International, the concert.
Just open your eyes, you'll see signs above the skies. Though the earth gives way, I will bless your name.
Aside from veteran OPM singers Jaya, Yang, JR, Jed Madela, KZ Tandingan, and Eric Santos, big names from the Filipino music scene are also among the performers, such as Jason D, Zephanie, Clarice de Guzman, Thor, Mark Oblea, and Ken San Jose. On June 13th, Sunday, 7 p.m., a digital launch of ASOP's newest album will be held via community platform Kumu. The album can be downloaded from iTunes Store, Spotify, Amazon, and other platforms. Wish-exclusive performances of the songs will also be uploaded on Wish 1075's YouTube channel.
Huwag kang bibitaw, kumapit ka lang, huwag kang susuko, ipaglaban mo ang katotohanan.
Mirasol Abogadil, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Huwag kang hihintay, ituloy ang takbo, huwag kang mapagod, tayo ay
And before we close, we will leave you with the final word giving glory to God from the book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 24. It says, "There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty."
And those are the reasons behind the news, June 8, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.